clinically supervising for this one entity, and I'm not going to name any names. I definitely don't want to get sued. Okay. But there were so many things that we encountered there, and it was, trying to get people to understand codes of ethics, to understand the scopes of practice, to understand what we can do versus what we can't do as counselors, as as medical nurses or what have you. And I don't clinically or medically supervise, any medical persons, at that time, especially. I was their administrative supervisor. So I was, they were teaching me scopes of practice for them, the medical people that I was over. But there were so many things that we encountered during that time where you had people that were trying to argue the fact of, oh, well, we're going to give out food to the patients, like we're going to heat it up. Like they would buy food, give it to the patients, heat it up. And I'm like, I'm like, whoa, like, and so when you try to set those boundaries, right, as you were saying, as both of you were saying, when, the more I fought, right, the harder I fought, the more that resistance kept building. And so it literally took, a gauntlet basically of smashing that boundary and saying, no, like you're going to lose your license if you keep doing this because I might have to report you. This, a person can, you can, accidentally harm somebody, right? And so it was literally, trying to get people to understand. And so I took many routes of getting them to understand that the importance of having those boundaries, right? And it was from an educational perspective, it was from an administrative perspective, it was sitting down with them and going over, hey, these are the policies, these are the rules, right? And the same thing even with teaching patients, right? Like when people can live in a domestic violence type of relationship, and I've seen it more so with women than what I have with men. Now it still happens with men, right? But there's been so many situations where I have literally sat down with individuals who have experienced domestic violence, and it's helping them to understand boundaries, teach them boundaries, helping them to understand the cycle of domestic violence, the cycle of any type of boundary building, and even all the way down to helping families, because addiction is my specialty, and so I do a lot of work with families, and so it's helping families to even understand the importance of boundaries. And I get asked a lot, well, what do I need to do? Well, I can't tell you what to do, but I can only encourage. This is my encouragement. I say encouragement because I don't give suggestions. And so I teach families, where, how to build boundaries, what they could look like, how they can be different from one situation to the next. And so both of you are really right. I think it's, those, when anytime boundaries are set, that resistance goes sky high because people are trying to break it every single time. Like it's natural, right? And you see it doesn't matter. I see it in my own life. Like you said, trying to put that boundary on social media, trying to put that boundary on email checking. As soon as I wake up, I'm like, let me see, let me check the subscriber count, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think in some ways we've been conditioned though. We think about it, we've been conditioned. I mean, the algorithm and everything else. It's very addictive, social media per se. It's very addictive. We've been socially conditioned, but so have you talking about domestic violence, right? And I'm certified in that as well. Is that, we talk about that for a very long time, women were second class citizens. They didn't have rights for a very long time. The men lorded over the women. There's a lot of laws that were on the books that were against women asserting themselves in that kind of way. And so it kind of goes throughout society and cultural differences and things like that. And women in domestic violence situations, it's not always safe to assert a boundary. It's not always safe. The worst time for a woman when they're getting ready to leave. It's the most threatening and most dangerous time for women when they're getting ready to leave. So think about it. They're not going to be asserting boundaries because they're trying to survive. There might be a lot of fawning behavior, right? When we talk about the different types of ways we kind of adapt to crisis and threats, is kind of fawning. Oh, it's okay. No, I'll just do it. It'll be okay. That type of thing, and trying to appease the person that's aggressing us or for someone who's kind of breaking those boundaries. So a lot of it goes against, I think, what we talk about the social constructs of male and female or gender, or even we talk about the LGBTQ plus community, all the different types of marginalized communities. That's hard. The disabled, those who are disabled, what have you, they have a difficult time because they're not seen as a full human being, a full person a lot of times, unfortunately. And we can do whatever we want to. They're going to do it because we're going to tell them to. Sometimes not cognitively, or just they don't have the power to just stand up for themselves, and no one's helping them in doing that unless they are.
I was just that was bringing something to my mind was let's kind of break a barrier in the discourse here with the ideation of deal with people that may not be conducive to the regular man or woman, however they feel that they are. That's a definite barrier that's in the front of our social system that is openly to be broken down because traditionally and culturally, religiously, spiritually, emotionally, those things are being fought by people that really don't understand or how to feel the way that they feel about their own selves. And that's a really complex set of feelings, barrier approach and torn down in such a way so that they can be productive in their lives and be a positive influence to others that may be experiencing the same things they're feeling. Whether you're actually able to break the barrier of being uh, care in whatever way you need it for. Some people aren't mentally prepared to deal with those types of barriers, especially when it deals with how they can feel about their own selves. So it's to me, it's more of a humanistic. I just hope that we conceive the notion of helping everyone from the human perspective instead of labeling them as this or that or the other. Hey, this human needs some help with this situation that they're having to go through. Let's get them the help that they need or be of some kind of assistance to help guide their way that way. And that's a really complex thing, but it's something that's definitely needs to be addressed in our modern world. I'm talking about on a global scope of it.
Does anyone else have that one tool that makes building a website a breeze? In an era driven by digital change, WebHash is the indispensable tool that holds the key to effortless website creation. Create websites that endure, defy censorship, and bypass any single point of failure. As cutting-edge technology redefines reality, seize the power to build beyond limits. Join the Web3 revolution now and forge paths others can only dream of. Visit our site today and build your legacy. Building my own space on the web was always a grind until I hit up WebHash. Their no-code builder is my ace. It's swift and solid. It's like rocking a digital fortress that's immune to the typical shutdowns. Level up your web presence without stress. Ready to stake your claim in the digital realm? Dive into WebHash today, connect your Web3 wallet, and get started. They have multiple subscription plans, from a free version to a lifetime subscription. Check them out today at webhash.com. Most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast, helping to raise awareness to critical topics in the healthcare field. Our official website was built using the WebHash platform. Throughout the projects that the One Moment movement built on WebHash, they stood behind and supported it all the way. Sign up and start building your website today. Don't forget to visit onemoment.chain.box and subscribe to our social media channels.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think a lot of people, when we talk about those who, and that's just one category of folks, right? People who are marginalized. Heck, they do. I'm going to use nonverbal cues to let you know that something's not right. And you better pay attention, right? Or somebody has to advocate for them. They don't want you to do that. So stop doing that. So for example, let me give you an example. Another example. I had I had my dad, he's deceased at this point, had a friend who was a gentleman who used to work with him at work. And he used to come over to the house and we called him uncle. And he wasn't our uncle, he was my dad's friend. Every time, without fail, he came to the house, he'd ask me for a hug. Come on, give your uncle a hug. I didn't always wanna do that, but I was often forced to, right? Often forced to until I got older and I said to my mom, "Listen, mom, I don't feel comfortable. I don't wanna give uncle hugs anymore. I just don't want to do that." She stepped in and said, "No, Tanya doesn't have to do that." So again, we have people who may not have the power to assert themselves in some kind of way. I'm sure my body language said a lot to it. It was probably ignored at that time or just kind of, swept over the rug a little bit. But there are a few of us who might recognize the cues that someone's giving and stand up and say, you know what, no, you don't have to do that. It's okay. And give the person permission to say no.
No, and I love that you said that because there's so many reasons. Because you were actually you said a lot of what I was going to speak on. There's so many reasons, and this is what I found, to be true without fail. And this is just a this much of reasons why people struggle for put up boundaries, and I find it more also within the minority community, African American, Asian, LGBTQ, substance use, HIV. Like there's so many populations out there that I find us in, but there's that, not having that, being able to stand up for yourself, right? Like that was one of them. That's a huge one, right? Struggling with the ability to self advocate. Another one is, fear of rejection. What if I say this, right? How are people going to judge me? There's another one is guilt tripping. So I don't want to guilt trip somebody, and I also don't want to be guilt tripped. Low self worth, so many things that can cause and even you cause and or make worse somebody's sense of self, self esteem, self worth, all of those things, right? And there's another one too, and I think this is very important, and I think we've all hit on this, in various ways. I don't think anybody's used this phrase as of yet, but it's conflict avoidance.
Yes.
Conflict avoidance is a huge one that I always find. There's so many people, even, and I find this to be true without fail. Counselors, supervisees, and even the students that I mentor, there's that fear of conflict. Well, I don't want this to happen, or I don't want to make my patient upset, or I don't want to make my supervisor upset. And even patients, they're afraid to, or not just afraid, but there's many reasons why they avoid that conflict. You know, the way I look at development is, whether it be our own individual development or, what have you, is development. If we look at group theory, apply to the idea of group theory, right? Stage two is the storming stage. I love group therapy. I love group theory. We all go through. We all have to experience conflict of some sort, personally, interpersonally, or intra, whichever one. I always get the two mixed up. We all have to experience that, and so the goal, right, is to help people learn how to not avoid the conflict, self-advocate, right? Self-advocate. I love working with people, helping them learn to advocate for themselves. I'm a huge human rights and patients' rights person across the board, with doesn't matter who it is. Patients' rights and human rights is the one thing that I will go toe to toe with, basically, right? Like I will talk till I'm blue in the face. Like I don't care, regardless of the situation, because it's a beautiful thing is to help people understand, wow, I do have a voice.